Morning, ladies. Welcome to Chod. Thank you to Desi for opening your home. It should always be full of friends, family, those scones.
Yes.
I don't think they have them in America. It's like not.
No,
It's like not at all. It's an English thing.
It's a bit healthier than like a chocolate muffin.
Yeah, with the cream, yeah. There's
Cream is optional. It's optional. I got in the mood.
I don't know where they in America. No, they have scones in America. I've never seen it. It's not a thing.
They do like a different type of scone, which is like a harder thing.
Yes, but here they make it so savory.
Yeah.
They do different flavors.
Right, like cheese.
I remember when I came to London. I might have been Canteen. I forget which restaurant I went to. And then it's like it was brunch. I'm looking through the menu, and then for dessert, it says like waffles, pancakes. I'm like, that's not dessert. That's like that's breakfast. Right? Over here, it's like dessert comes with chocolate and ice cream. I'm like, it's still breakfast. Right? Different mentality. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. So we have quite a famous pasuk in this week's parasha. Right? The Gemara asks a famous question, famous scenario. You're traveling in the desert, and you come upon a person. This person says to you, look, I miscalculated, and I have no food, I have no water. And you have one bottle of water, but you made sure you calculated pretty well, but that one bottle of water is enough just for you. What is the halacha? Are you supposed to share the water? You're supposed to give it to him? You're supposed to keep it for yourself? What do? Share. If you share the water, chances are you both won't make it. There's enough water for one day for one person. It's pretty hot. Do we say, look, start sharing it, and who knows? You got to take life a day at a time, a minute at a time, and it could be in an hour or two or three, somebody else will show up and has some water. Do you say, you can't risk it because you're in the middle of a desert and somebody might not show up, and therefore, where's your bitachon? Well, you also have to be practical. Do you say, Veahavta l'reacha kamocha? What does the words Veahavta l'reacha kamocha mean? Love your friends like you love yourself. So if I need to love this random person as much as I love myself, maybe I should get him the water. What would you say is the right thing to do?
I still say share.
Share.
The halacha will be that you have to have it yourself.
Keep it. I think so.
It's like with the
If I'm not mistaken, it's a machloket.
Yes.
Rabbi Akiva is the one that says, Chayecha kodmin. The Torah says, V'chai bahem, you need to prioritize yourself. You can't just share it, because if you share it, assuming no one else shows up, you're both going to die. It doesn't help anybody. You don't have to give it to this other person. You, V'chayecha kodmin, your life comes first. You need to prioritize yourself, and you need to drink this water. You'll feel very bad, but that's the halacha. You do what you got to do in tough situations.
That is your child.
Good question.
That is a good question.
So
They still say on the plane you put it on yourself first.
let me ask you a question.
That's another thing.
Let me ask you a question. Does it make a difference if you're telling me give it to your child, which I'm not saying is the halacha? Do you? Does it matter how old you are? What if you're 24 and this child is 2 months old? As opposed to you being 60 and your child being 20 or 30.
Yeah, but
You might look and say, well, Baruch Hashem, I've lived a pretty nice life. I want my child. But what if you're 24 or 28 and you have 4 other kids that now are not going to have a mother, and there's a baby that's a newborn? Right? These are tough situations. In Israel, they're dealing with these day in, day out. How do you prioritize who, what, and how? Hostages, soldiers, people taken, soldiers know what they're getting themselves into. Hostages were taken without permission, right? Some are hostages are Jewish, some aren't Jewish, but it's not simple when it comes to these things. But the halacha is that you prioritize yourself. I think even if you have a child, you want to tell me the person who has the bottle of water is 95 years old and terminally ill, as opposed to someone else that might be, 15 or 20 or 25. Not so simple. In the Holocaust, they had these questions, unfortunately, quite commonly. How, what, where, why, when. Each scenario is its own scenario. But Rabbi Akiva says, you need to prioritize yourself. This is the same Rabbi Akiva that when it says in this week's parasha, Veahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your friend like you love yourself. What's the halacha? Ze klal gadol b'Torah. Says Rabbi Akiva, this is one of the fundamental rules. One of the most important things we have in the whole Torah is Veahavta l'reacha kamocha. So how could it be that Rabbi Akiva says Veahavta l'reacha kamocha, and the very same Rabbi Akiva says Zekal Gadol B'Torah is the one who says prioritize yourself. What does it mean, kamocha? If you went and you bought a new car for yourself, and you're showing your friend, you're showing your neighbor says, wow, amazing, beautiful, wow, 2025, phenomenal car. Great, I'll take one as well. Oh, what do you mean? Veahavta re'acha kamocha. Love your friend like you love yourself. You bought yourself a nice new brand new car. By me? Right? Is that what it means? Right? Imagine someone comes to you and says, oh, Baruch Hashem, Mazel Tov, you're making a wedding. I'm making up numbers over here. You're going to be spending 50, 100 grand on your wedding. There's a poor person in Israel. Why should they not have a nice wedding? We want you to give 100 grand for their wedding as well. 100 grand? Why do they need 100 grand for their wedding? It's like Israel. Yeah, but we want to go all out. Well, they shouldn't get what you get. Kamocha. Don't you love them?
Not to do, not for sisa.
So you're saying it's ve'ahavta. So what does it mean ve'ahavta? What does it mean kamocha? Ve'ahavta l're'acha kamocha. You should love your friend. And we're not talking about some random person. The re'acha is someone, I'm assuming you have some shaykhs to connection. Right. What does it mean ve'ahavta l're'acha kamocha? So you look at the Ramban, Nachmanides, in this week's parasha, and he says haflaga. It's an exaggeration. It's not humanly possible to love someone else like you love yourself. It's just not again, besides a spouse and a child, right? And the child's the only one potentially you want. Not a spouse, just a child. Okay. Depends on the spouse, depends on the person, depends on the child. Every situation is its own situation. It depends if he just bought you a nice gift or took you away, right? Then the love this is very conditional. How much did he spend on the anniversary present? No, Baruch Hashem. So, besides a child and maybe a spouse, right? What does this mean? Ve'ahavta re'acha kamocha.
Well, I bet Rabbi Akiva fulfills it. I bet he loves other people like he loves himself.
Probably, but when did he say this? Did he say this after his 24,000 students died or before? Right. Was that his motto? And if he said it beforehand, that his students just didn't pick up on his motto? Or did he say it after saying 24,000 people die and then say, you know what? This is pretty epic. This is Klal Gadol B'Torah. This is one of the most important fundamental things. I think most opinions say he said it afterwards. Not that he didn't live it or say it beforehand, but for him, we gave a class last year all about Rabbi Akiva. So what does it mean, Ve'ahavta re'acha kamocha? If Ramban's saying it means it's an exaggeration, if it's not, and the Ramban says it's not humanly possible to love someone else like you love yourself. Now, very important, especially in today's day and age, you got to love yourself. Many people, unfortunately, look in the mirror and only see the flaws. Many people don't really feel very good about themselves and don't love themselves. So that doesn't mean that they don't have to love anybody else. But it's important just to appreciate. We're very good at justifying, and hopefully, if we have a decent amount of self-esteem, you look in the mirror and you say, "Look, I know I have some flaws. I'm not the perfect person, but overall, I'm a pretty good person. I'm pretty good. I do a lot of good stuff. I'm a good daughter. I'm a good person. I'm a good Jew. I'm a good neighbor. I'm a good friend." We like to think that. I hope so, and I think it's true. But that's important to appreciate. But what does it mean? What is ve'ahavta re'acha kamocha? If it's an exaggeration, it doesn't mean that you buy the person sitting next to you a brand new car like you bought yourself, or a brand new phone, or whatever it might be. What would you say? What's expected of us? And
to
be there for them.
To be there for them?
Maybe something to aspire to?
Something to aspire. So when the commentaries ask, why would Hashem even say this if it's not really possible? And on the highest level, maybe it is possible. The average person, no, you really, really, really need to work on yourself, but it is something to at least say, this is where I should try and get to, and therefore you push yourself as much as you can to be there for other people. Yeah.
I think also it could be also that not necessarily love someone as you love yourself, but treat someone as you would treat yourself.
Or as you want to be
As
treated.
opposed to don't do it for them.
When the guy comes to Shammai and says, teach me the whole Torah as I stand on one foot, right? Shammai says, hey, get out of here, this guy's taking the mic, right? He's a jokester, he's not interested. When he comes to Hillel, what does Hillel say to him?
He did, he stood on one foot and told him.
He said, what did he say to him?
Don't do it to someone else,
Right.
you wouldn't
So
do it for yourself.
it's funny, the commentaries ask, why didn't he just say, Ve'ahavta re'acha kamocha? Because that doesn't sound, because we know it's an exaggeration. So what does he say? Sort of the same thing, but in the negative. Madasani, right? What you don't like done to others, don't do Sorry, what you don't like done to yourself, don't do to others. Don't do to others. In other words, don't harm somebody else. Don't be annoying to somebody else. You don't like it when you're driving and someone cuts in at the last second, so don't do that. Right? Some people are like, respect, right? They timed it perfectly, they sped up, this one, the truck, right? Right? You give them respect, okay? But, so do I, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody else does. And some people are sitting there thinking, I've been waiting here for 20 minutes, and this person just chutzpah. Right? You don't like it when someone else does that to you. Maybe if you do like it, it's not as bad. But right, we have to look at the general population. Some people don't care about certain things. It doesn't mean. I said to my wife, I'm nervous that when our kids get married, I'm pretty blunt and she's pretty blunt, and I know that she could handle if I say something pretty straightforward. I said to her, I'm worried that like our kids are going to get married, I think it's okay to talk this way, but it's not. I just get to the point, right? My wife knows that. She knows that. Like I remember right when I got married, I was married 2-3 years, and my son, we're living in Israel. My son, a 2-year-old, he was making some trouble. My wife said, can you take care of him? I was like, no. We had a bunch of son girls like around for the Shabbos meal. I'm like, no. She's like, why not? I'm like, this is your fault. And all of them are like, well, what does that mean? I'm like, when Chava gave Adam, and these girls were like mortified. I'm like, when Chava gave Adam to eat from the tree, it says that she got cursed. One of those things, itzvunyech, says Rashi, what's itzvunyech? Tsar gidul banim, the hassle and headache of raising boys. I said, you shouldn't have given us to eat from the tree. It's your problem, right? And the girls were like, nah. My wife knows I'm kidding around or whatever. The girls were like mortified. And one girl's like, actually, my Rebbetzin told me it's Adam's fault. I'm like, really? Why? She's like, oh, it's in my notes. I'm like, come back next time. Bring your notes and we'll discuss. Right? But so some people might not, it doesn't matter. You have to act to the population, to other people, the way the average person want to be treated. Even if it doesn't bother you, you can't talk a certain way or do certain things, even if you're okay with it. But no, you know that most people would not be okay with you saying this or doing that or whatever it might be. So what does it mean? What is Hillel saying? Don't harm somebody else. Don't go out of your way and sort of put yourself in their shoes and try and understand what it is they might be going through. Because ultimately we have no idea what they've been through. I read a story just today. The Chafetz Chaim was one time traveling. He stopped by an inn, and there was a guy over there in his 40s who was just a rude, bad, disgusting person. The service, he was screaming at the waiter, and he was just loud and obnoxious. And the Chafetz Chaim we have in this week's parasha talks about you have a mitzvah to rebuke. Right? Another Jew. He saw this guy was Jewish, and he got up and he was about to say, you can't talk that way, you can't act that way. You have to have a certain amount of respect and decency. And as he was getting up, the innkeeper saw the Chafetz Chaim and said to him, just leave him. He said, what do you mean? He says, you don't understand. This guy was taken by the Russians when he was 7 years old from his house. He spent the past 35 years in the army. He has no connection to Yiddishkeit. The only thing he knows is he's a Jew. But at least that he still clings to. So he was never taught manners. He didn't have parents to teach him manners. That's the way they acted in the army. He doesn't know any better. Chafetz Chaim says, okay, thank you for letting me know. Comes to the guy and he says, I'm in awe and I'm jealous of you. So what do you mean? He says, you had no connection to Torah and Yiddishkeit, and yet you 35 years in the Russian army, and you still consider yourself a proud Jew. It's unbelievable. You don't know the reward you're going to get in heaven. Sees the Chafetz Chaim, is praising him. Everybody else is, looks down at him, and he says, "Wow, okay." They start schmoozing, and slowly but surely he got a connection with the Chafetz Chaim. Was Jose ben Tshuva? Why? Because he said, "I don't know what you've been through. I don't know. You have no idea. You see somebody else that they're not happy. You don't know what they're having in their house. You don't know what their financial situation is. You don't know the headache that you might on the outside. It might seem, wow, they're happy, they're smiling, they got it all. Baruch Hashem. They travel, they have a nice house, and they have the car. But the heart's broken. Right? It's not a goyish concept of broken heart. David HaMelech, we say every day in the tefillah, Harofeh, Shvurei Lev. Hashem heals the brokenhearted. It's a thing. So you have no idea what someone's going through. And therefore, you need to do your best to not harm them. But more than that, our rabbis tell us, you should do your best to push yourself to not be negative, right? There's sur me'ara na'aseh tov. I was giving a shiur last week, a bunch of guys here from America, and I said to them, we're now in Sfirat HaOmer. Our rabbis tell us before we left Mitzrayim, we were on the 49th level of Tumah. When we received the Torah, Shavuot, what level were we on? 49th level of holiness. So I said, if anything, they either went up 2 levels every day, I would say every day was Sfirat Omer, they went up a level. If anything, they went up 2 levels. Because if you're on minus 49, and you go up 1 every day, you just got to 0. Unless, and I didn't see any rabbi say this, you can say there's 2 elements to every level. There's concept of sur mera va'aseh tov. Right? You have somebody, every night the guy goes out, drinking, smoking, clubbing, hooking up, and that one night he decides, you know what, I'm not going to go out and do all that stuff, I'm going to sit home and watch the game. Did he do good? No. Did he do bad? No, but he didn't do good. You tell me he went, he volunteered, he learned, he did whatever it is, he did good. Over here, he didn't do bad. So it could be every level, they're on level 49 because they were doing bad, and avodah zarah, and whatever it is. And if they would have just sat there doing nothing, then they might have got up half a level or a level and got to neutral. But they went and they did good every single day. And I'm sure we mentioned in the past, part of those days of growth were also epic failure days. Part of those days of growth were when they complained to Moshe Rabbeinu, why'd you bring us out here to die in the desert? Right before Kriyat Yam Suf. And 3 days later, when they say, Hamabli and Kvarim in Mitzrayim, there are not enough graves in Egypt, you brought us out here to die in the desert. Right? They go to war versus Amalek and they say, Hayesh Hashem b'kibenu ma'ayin, is God with us or not? Those are all days of growth. How are those days of growth? Because if you learn from your mistakes, then that's a growing process. Right? But there's 2 elements to each one. We have to do our best to not just sur mera, not just harm somebody else, not just don't do unto others what you don't want done to you, is basically neutral. Right? It's sur mera. An even higher level is to be active. Right? Now, it does say Veahavta, which is an emotion. It doesn't say you need to do anything, go buy them a house or buy them a car or give money for their wedding. Right? But it's not necessarily enough to just do it in your heart. The story of this rabbi who gets into a taxi, and the driver was a bit defensive right away. He sees the guy with the beard, he says, no, ani lo dati, ani dati balev. Okay. They start schmoozing, and then they get a little bit political, and they start talking about yeshiva guys and the army and the draft. And the rabbi says, ani chayal. He says, Ken? Which battalion? He says, ani chayal balev. What does that even mean? We're army or not an army? So what does it mean to be dati balev? Right? There is something there. There's the neshama, there's the pintala, you know what I mean? But that being said, it's not just enough ve'ahavta, right? Our rabbis tell us, do your best to push it, to do something, to be active, to understand that you need to not just not want bad, but you should want good, which doesn't sound like such a big deal, but it's a very high level. We'll give you an example. Imagine, if you will, I was talking to somebody yesterday about real estate on my road. Right? So real estate, all the houses over the past, 6, 7, 8 years went for $1,050,000, 1.1 million, 1.2 million, and now the market's not doing great. And this house just sold for $1 million. The guy who got the house for $1 million, how does he feel? Feels amazing. Got a great deal. Cheap it. Now imagine the market still keeps going down, and the next house goes for $850. Right? How does the guy now feel? Is he jealous of the other guy? I don't know if he's jealous, but envious. Envious. Is there a difference between jealousy and envy? Right? It's not that I don't want him to have it. I'm happy for him. I also wanted it. Right? You have somebody who has a few children in Shidduchim, right? And they're looking for all different types of guys. And someone maybe even suggests this guy, and they look at him and say, I don't know, we're not sure. And then the next thing they hear, he got engaged to the neighbor. And they come in, and everyone's saying all these amazing things about the guy, and he's handsome, and he's a Talmid Chacham, and he has a great degree, and a great job lined up. And what are you thinking to yourself if you're that mom? Missed out, right? So, are we happy for somebody else? Are we Veahavta? You didn't do anything bad. I wish I had that. You were very happy when you bought the house for $1 million. You felt like $1 million. You felt great. I got a great deal. But then what happens when you hear someone else got an even better deal? You sort of, I should be happy. The same way you said if it was your child. Imagine your kid got that deal for $850. How do you now feel? You bought it for $1 million and your kid got it for $850. Are you envious of your child? No. You're happy for that.
Yeah, sure.
That's how we're supposed to be for everybody.
This is aspirational.
why the Mefarshim ask, why did Hashem even write Veahavta recha kamocha if it's not possible? And the Ramban saying it's haflaga, it's an exaggeration. And the answer is so that we should do our best to train ourselves, right? I remember years ago hearing a story from Rabbi Friend. He has a whole discussion, a lot of what we're discussing. And he said, Reb Shimshon Pincus, Zichrono Livracha, somebody came to him, they're having shalom bayit issues. And he speaks to the husband, speaks to the wife, speaks to them together, and says, so what exactly? She says, I work hard. I go buy the food. They don't have a car. I go to the shuk. I come back. I make the dinner. And he doesn't eat it. So the rabbi looks at the husband and says, how come you don't eat your wife's dinner? He says, I'm not a young man. And it hurts. Really, I need dentures, and it hurts. It's not the softest, I have other kids and I want to make for everybody. I can't make only for him, and this is a normal thing. He says, but I can't eat it. My teeth are too sensitive and I need dentures. Pinky says, how much are dentures? Whatever it was, $3,000. I don't have such money. I'm barely getting by day to day. Pinky says, okay, wait over here. He comes back, takes out the money, gives it to the guy. Rabbi, I can't, no, it's for you. Don't worry about it. My schut, my honor, shalom bayit. The couple leaves, and the gabbai looks at Reb Shimshon Pincus and says, Rabbi, you don't have such money. Like, I know you were saving up. You have kids' weddings to come. What? How could you do that? How could you just give away that money? Reb Shimshon Pincus looked at the gabbai and said, if that was my son, would you question me? He goes, no. He goes, my son, your son, the Eibishter's son. What's the difference? Now, that's a very high level. I'm not on that level. I don't know too many people in love. That's why he's with Pincus. That too. And even if you did, is that what you prioritize? I'm saving up. I want to make an investment. I have my own kids' weddings I need to save up for, whatever it might be. But if it's that, now we're not all Reb Shimshon Pincus, but Veahavta recha kamocha, he took it literally, and to him it was the same. My son, your son. What's the difference? If I need it, if you need it, I'm going to do whatever is needed. This is necessary. We're all one big family. We're Klal Yisrael. And putting yourself in someone else's shoes. The story of, I forget which Rebbe. This person came to him, and let's say the Rebbe was Hasidish. This guy was wearing kippah sruga, obviously not Hasidish, but a great rabbi comes to the rabbi and says, I need a bracha. I need to be able to marry off my child. The wedding is in a couple of days, and I'm still short $1,000. The Rebbe says, you know what? I have a special fund. Takes out, I think it was $930 or $970, gives it to the guy, says, Yeshiva, mazel and bracha, v'atzlacha, gives it to the person. The guy is ecstatic, thank you so much, Rebbe, it's unbelievable. Walks out, and the gabbai says to the Rebbe, says, Rebbe, once you gave him $970, Baruch Hashem, you have the money. Why don't you just give him $1,000? What did the Rebbe say? He says, chances are he needed more than $1,000, but he was embarrassed. If I would have given him $1,000, he's walking away thinking to himself, I should have said I need 2,000. If I give him 930, 970, whatever the number was, what's he thinking to himself? Oh, the Rebbe gave me everything he possibly could. That's Veahavta recha kamocha. You put yourself in the other person's shoes and said, I don't want to, I'm giving him money. I don't have to, he didn't ask. But even in the way I'm doing it, I want it to be that he shouldn't feel, you have to help, but even help in a way that they shouldn't feel bad. And help in a way that they don't realize you're necessarily helping.
Story of the milk, the Pesach, where he asked the Rebbe.
Yeah. He understood. The person asked, can you use milk for the Dalit Kosot? Yeah. And the Rebbe said, let me give you money for some wine, and he gave him money for some meat. And the Gabbai said, money for meat? What shaykhs? How'd you know? He didn't have meat. He says, well, if he's using milk, he doesn't have meat. Mm-hmm. Right? Put yourself in their shoes, understand one thing from another, be sensitive. Appreciate, understand. You never know where, what, how, what. So put yourself, and again, sometimes you can't possibly put yourself in someone else's shoes. But do your best to understand. You don't know what they're going through. So yeah, they might have been rude. They didn't answer you. They're very busy. They're all over the place. They don't have this situation. Right? Sometimes you have people, they're making a wedding. Right? And you're like, how come I didn't get invited? There's a limited amount of seats. And then one guy said to me, right, this kid got married a few months ago. He says, I would love to invite you, but Baruch Hashem, just my family, my side is 200 people. Between all the cousins, so you have to. I'm happy there's a simcha. Baruch Hashem. I understand, right? It doesn't. You can't. It's not unlimited. You have to prioritize, and sometimes family is going to come before friends. Me'achuz. I'm ecstatic. Baruch Hashem. Are you happy when you hear these news? Even if you yourself want the same thing, easier said than done. But that's ve'ahavta recha kamocha. You put yourself in that person's shoes, and you find a way to not just not harm them, not the sisterinlaw, right? What you don't want done to you, don't do to others. But more than that, do your best to put yourself in their shoes and ve'ahavta, and love them and be happy for them when things happen, even if you also want that, even if you're also waiting for the promotion in the job, even if you're also waiting for the shidduch, if you're also waiting to have the child, to have whatever it might be, say, I'm really happy for that person. And mean it, which again, a very high level. It's not easy, but that's ve'ahavta kamocha. Right? Rabbi Akiva, after seeing all his students pass away, says, Zeh klal gadol b'Torah. This is one of the most fundamental things, because ultimately, when you're happy for someone else, and you're not jealous and you're not envious, ultimately it means that you truly believe in Hashem. Easier said than done, but when they talk about the 10 Commandments, Shavuot, all we got was the 10 Commandments. The first commandment is, I am Hashem your God. The 10th commandment is, don't be jealous. And some Mefarshim say, number 10 is just the actualization of number 1. Number 1 is believe. Number 10 is by not being jealous, but I also wish I had that time. I was able to travel over there. I had that child. I had that shidduch. I had that house. I had that investment. I had that. And I mean, this person, they're so lucky. I'm happy for them. Baruch Hashem. I get what I'm meant to get. They get what they're meant to get. Everyone has their pekalach, and I understand. Ve'ahavta recha kamocha is really only possible when you truly understand and believe that Hashem runs the show, and He knows what He's doing, and it's going to be what it's meant to be, when it's meant to be, how it's meant to be. There's no point in stressing. Right? I always tell my kids, you can't control how other people act. You can only control how you react. You can't control what Hashem does and how Hashem does what He does. We trust that He knows what's best for us, even if sometimes it doesn't make sense to us. But how do we react? What do we say to Hashem when the things don't work out that we wanted them to work out? Right? Even when we daven. I'm sure you mentioned, you'll often hear me quote Rabbi Shimon Schwab. Right? He spent one Shabbat with the Chavetz Chaim, and he has loads of stories from that Shabbat. And the Chavetz Chaim said to him, Shimon, how's your dad doing? Must have known him, he was a teenager, Shimon Schwab. And he said, not great, but we have bitachon that he'll get better. He says, that's not bitachon. He said to the Chavetz Chaim, we shouldn't have bitachon that Hashem can make him better. He says, no, you should hope and daven that Hashem makes him better, but that's not bitachon. He says, so what's bitachon? He says, bitachon is that you say, Hashem, I hope he gets better, but if not, I understand, you know what's best. That adding on changes the whole everything.
Isn't that the difference between bitachon and emunah?
Emunah is the knowledge, and bitachon is living the knowledge. Over here we're saying, I'm living it that Hashem can make him better, but if not, I know that's what's best. I'm davening that this person should get a shidduch, should have a child, should have parnasa, should have refuah, whatever it is that we're davening for, but if not, Hashem, I know you know what's best. Even if it doesn't make sense to me. I trust that you know what you're doing. You're my father, you want what's best for me. Easier said than done. You can love somebody else and be happy for them, even if you don't have what they have, because you know that Hashem gave them that, and you get this. I think we've said many times, I was discussing this week. Someone asked me one time, Rabbi, what do you tell your kids when they say life's not fair? I said, I tell my kids they're right. Who said life's fair? Because the way that we translate fair is equal. Life's not equal. Some people are clever, and some people aren't as clever. Some people are wealthy, some people aren't as wealthy. Some people are better looking than others. Some people are more athletic. Some people get married, some people don't get married. Some people have children, some people don't have children. Some people have finances, some people struggle, everybody has their test. Life's not fair. It's fair, it's just not equal. Right? So, because we unfortunately translate fair as equal, I'll say life's not fair. Life's very fair. Everyone gets what they're meant to get. Right? But Veahavta recha kamocha is the actualization of that, of understanding that this is exactly what I'm meant to have when I'm meant to have it. It's not that, right now I'll get this, and in Mirz Hashem it'll get better. No, right now I have what I'm meant to have, and if Hashem wants it to get better, great. And if not, then that's not what's meant to be. Right? I'm planning to do this. Hopefully Hashem has the same plan. Right? Bezat Hashem. We have this plan. We want to do this. This is where we see life going. This is our ideal. Hopefully Hashem has the same plan. Easy to say, hard to live day in, day out when you see other people that have what you don't have. It's not easy. But the Torah is telling us, Veahavta recha kamocha. What does it mean to love someone else like you love yourself? When you see someone else, look at yourself, you know that there's some things I can be doing better. But overall, I'm good. Look at that other person and say, I'm happy for them. Yeah, but they don't do this and I do that. You're right. They have their flaws, I have my flaws. They get certain things that I don't have, and I get certain things they don't have. It's very easy
If you go back to the scenario in the desert, are you really then supposed to keep the water for yourself?
I was just going to ask that.
Why not?
I don't know, it just seems like everything that we're ever taught and we try to teach and whatever is selflessness and all of that. And then really in that type of situation, are you just supposed to say, I need to keep this for myself to survive?
That's what Rabbi Akiva says. Then that's why we asked the question. It specifically said it's Rabbi Akiva that says the Torah says v'chai b'hem. You need to live by them, and you need to be alive. You need to be able to function. Yes, there's times where when we go through the different midot, different character traits, Sfirat HaOmer, you have Chesed and you have Gevura. Now, there's the week of Chesed, and then even in the week of Chesed, there's sub-elements of Gevura, and then there's also Gevura, the second week, with sub-elements of Chesed. Right? What's the difference between Chesed Shebegvura and Gvura Shebechesed? Is there a difference? It's the same thing. No, certain ones there's Gevura. Gevura is the strength to not give someone else the drink, even though you really want to and you feel horrendous, and you might not sleep at night for who knows how long, knowing that maybe. But if maybe somehow I should have started out sharing, and who knows, Hashem would have sent someone if I would have, and if not, and maybe we could have. No. You know that you did what the Torah tells you to do. You did the right thing. And sometimes the givura is not to do the chesed. Right? That's not easy to do.
Never have to be in that
You
situation.
should never have to be in any situation. But sometimes your kid comes to you and wants something, and you say no, and you feel really bad. But, that's not what's best for them, right? We had a whole chinuch discussion, my wife and I, this week. And then one of the neighbors came, we were discussing it, right? My wife was saying how my sister-in-law lives in New Jersey on this road with a bunch of wealthy people, right? They bought their house years ago and prices have skyrocketed, and Baruch Hashem, the road is quite a wealthy road. And there's this skirt that everybody has that's like a $200 skirt. And her daughter is 12 years old, I think, and wants the skirt. And she was saying the school she's in, none of those girls have it. But on the road, everybody has it. So should she buy this skirt or should she not buy the skirt? Right? Yes, no, she's going to feel left out. She's going to be the only one. She's going to be looked down upon.
You have to teach your children.
So that's me and my wife. I was like, it's a chinuch thing, like, tell her, you went away for Pesach. They didn't go away for Pesach. Everybody gets different things. This is, I said to her from a chinuch perspective, it's not about the $200, whether they have it or don't have it. I would teach her that life's not fair and not going to be equal. And sometimes you get stuff they don't have. You know what I mean? Not that, again, not equal. We use the words fair. And my wife's like, but no, I don't want her to feel like a nebuch and walk out on the street and be embarrassed and be scared. Right? Different view. You have the same thing over here. Yeah, sure. Maybe on a lower level, but for sure. Human nature is kids see, right? Yeah, we're always 20 years behind. I remember when I first came to London, and it's not like this anymore, myself included, but someone said to me, I've been here 15 years. They said, what do you like about London? I said, I like that on my road, every single house looks the same. Some people are multimillionaires and some people are poor old ladies. Now, anybody who's bought a house pretty much has knocked it down, redone it, and changed. But even that still is not nearly the pressures that you have in America. In America, it's a different world. It's
always going to be different, and I love it.
Baruch Hashem, yeah. So no, but even still, but then the pressures there will grow. Even the pressures there will grow exponentially. But again, it was a chinuch question, but it also comes down to Veahavta recha kamocha. Right? Well, I'm very happy for that person to have it. Right? So now we'll change the scenario a bit. Should my sister-in-law, let's say she decides she is or isn't buying it. Let's say she decides she's not buying it. Chinuch, I don't think I need to teach my kid. She can't always get what she wants. Even if everyone else has it, they get that. You get other things. It is what it is. Is she upset when she sees the neighbor buy these $200-$300 skirts for the kid? No. Should my sister-in-law she should be happy when she sees that the neighbor comes out and says, look, I just bought all these dresses for my daughter. Should she say,
It's good for them, and we do what's good for us.
oh, so that's easier said than done. Especially when you're trying to be machanech your kid. Right? Especially when you're trying to be machanech your kid. So Veahavta recha kamocha would tell us, no, be happy for them. They think that's important. That's where they want to spend their money. They have that money to spend. Right? If that's what makes them happy, to each their own. Everybody has different things. Right? Some people making them happy is driving a nice car, but they live in a small little house and they never travel. And some people don't necessarily have the biggest house, but they prioritize. Everybody prioritizes different things. Where you want to spend, how you want to spend. You mentioned bar mitzvahs. I told my son, he was one of the first in the years. Anyways, there wasn't that much to compare it to. I said, your mother's going to make the bar mitzvah she feels she needs to make. The quantities might be bigger if there's 50, 100, 200, 500 people. But this is what she would do even if there was 10 people. This is what she feels the bar mitzvah should look like. She doesn't care about anybody else, right? It's not in the rabbi budget, but that's a different discussion, right? It's not because human nature is you compare. When they talk about the Nisim, and they each brought the same exact korban. And they say, you know who was probably the greatest? Of all the Nisim who brought the same exact korban, who was the greatest? The second one. Why was the second one the greatest? Because human nature is the first guy brought and, he did this, we're going to do a little bit more. Once the second guy brought exactly the same, it set the tone. Right? You have person number one makes a bar mitzvah, wedding, whatever it might be. And they say, we're going to spend X. And the next person, human nature is, I'm going to throw in the sushi thing. Right? I'm going to make sure I have the ice cream station. Whatever. It's not bad or good. It's just human nature. You want to be a little bit different. You're not trying to one-up anybody else necessarily. Sometimes you are, but hopefully not. But it's just, I want it to be different. I want it to be more unique. I want it to be more special in its own way. Right? My wife asked my son, what do you like? And he liked messy fries from Tuk Tuk. So we got messy fries from Tuk Tuk because that's what he likes. And he liked pulled beef. So my wife said, what does he like? It's his bar mitzvah. I want him, right? She also got stuff that she likes. I remember listening to a shiur and the rabbi said, I was getting married and my in-laws wanted this, and my parents wanted this, and I said, hello, I'm getting married here. Right? He says, now I'm making a daughter for my wedding, and she wants this, and the chatan wants this, and they want that, and he's like, hello, I'm paying for this wedding. It's all a matter of perspective. But Veahavta reacha kamocha means you walk in to the wedding, to the bar mitzvah, to the party, you walk down the road, and you say, wow, I'm so happy for them. Right? Not, it's such a waste of money, why do they need such a big house? They don't even have that many, I'm happy for them. And I have that love. The same way if it was my child, I'd be excited for them. I'd be happy for them. They got a better deal than I did. Easier said than done when the other person gets a better deal. Human nature is, you were so happy when you spent $1 million and now the market went down even more and they paid $850. Be happy for them. I was happy for me and it works for me and the finances, that's why I did it. So what changes that the market went down more? Again, human nature, easier said than done, is to be a little bit distraught and say, oh man, I should have waited, right? But no, Veahavta reacha kamocha tells us, I'm happy for them. Baruch Hashem, unbelievable. Is that easy to do? My Rebbe, and I'll end with this, and I'm not on this level. I don't know too many that are. My Rebbe Yitzhak Berkowitz, he said that when years before he was in his building, they were building, and there was loads of dust and dirt and balagan, especially in Israel. This one gets jealous of that one, and their mipes, it's bigger, and we could have, and we should have, and they're blocking it now, we don't get the sun. And he said, how did I make sure that we'd be excited for the neighbors that are building this merpeset, even though it was a huge balagan, and all the others? He says, we made it like it was our merpeset. Every day my kids would come home, they put this, they got the railing, they put down the floor, they got the marble, it's been delivered, it's coming in another week. He says, we got excited. I made sure me and my wife made it that in our house we were just as excited for them as they were for themselves. Easier said than done. You're excited for them? It's a hassle. There's no parking on the road, and there's balagan and dust, and then complaining, and then no. I'm excited for them. This came in and that came in. Oh, they're almost done. They're 50% done. That's the mentality we're supposed to have. So one level says that Ramban is not just like Hillel says, don't do unto others. But Baruch Hashem, we can do more than just Sur Meirah. We can do Aseh Tov, everyone on their level. And again, it comes down to trusting in Hashem. If I trust that I got what I'm meant to get, so why wouldn't I be happy for them? They got a better deal. Okay, I got what I'm meant to get. They got what they're meant to get. There'll be other times where I get a better deal. They get a better deal. It's whatever Hashem wants. I'm very excited. I'm very happy. The market went down. I lost a little bit. Okay, it's going to be what it's meant to be, and hopefully it'll go back up. What's going to be? Hashem runs the show. At that time, it made sense. Now it might not make sense, but when I did it, this is what made sense at the time, so I'm happy. Veahavta reacha kamocha. Easier said than done, but that's Kal Gadol b'Torah. And it must be that Rabbi Akiva felt his students weren't doing it right, and they didn't respect each other, and they didn't love each other. Right? If you love somebody else, you respect them. So we need to make sure that we love, first of all, ourselves. Kamocha. We have to love ourselves. Look in the mirror and see the pros. Are there some cons? Are there some deficiencies? Of course, we're human beings. But we need to do our best to love ourselves. We need to do our best to look at our friends and family and neighbors and even random strangers and people, and say, I'm happy for them that they have this. I'm happy for them that they got this. Baruch Hashem, I don't have it, but I get what I'm meant to have. I have the things I have, they have the things they have. Veahavta v'cha kamocha. Bezat Hashem, we'll do that. We'll have that trust in Hashem. We'll do our best to be happy for others, even if it's not always so simple. And if we do that, then we're Zekal Gadol Torah. We're showing Hashem we truly believe, trust. And then when we pass that test, hopefully we'll be zocheh to be in Eretz Yisrael with all the apartments and all the balagan.
Yeah.
Amen.